This is a remarkable, remarkable occasion. Do you see us today?
What, that we're both alive and sitting here? Or what?
No, that we match. That
That
you are wearing a subdued color. I'm always wearing a subdued color, but I actually have pattern on mine today. So we are starting to do that senior citizen thing.
No,
We dress alike.
you're reading way, way, way too much into this. I'm just wearing gray because it's kind of a gray day.
Yeah, I'm wearing gray too.
You are?
Yeah.
Gray, black, and white. Look,
Mm.
love.
Oh,
This is
excellent.
how life is.
Sequined loves on your sleeve. I love it.
Yeah,
Welcome to the podcast, Tina.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
okay. Hi, my name is Tina Terry. I am the founder of a nonprofit organization going on 12 years now called Just Listen. I wanted to create an organization to help people because my daughter kept coming home with drinking tickets and police. And I was just, oh, this has to stop. So how could I help? I've had a helping heart my whole life. So I thought, you know what? I've been there. I get it. So maybe since it's so hard to help our own children, I thought maybe I could open something to help individuals and it would indirectly help her. And that was my plan. And that's what I did. So going all the way back to 1989, I myself went into drug rehab after a 4 or 5 day long binge and cocaine and alcohol. And I ended up slitting my wrist. And my sister seen blood in the coming out the bathroom. I don't know bits and pieces of that moment, but she called my mom and I like heard things on the phone and my mom says, "Oh my goodness, why does God give me another alcoholic?" And my sister said, "Mom, Tina's on drugs." So they sent the ambulance to the house. They ended up putting me in a straitjacket. And I remember them actually placing me on there. And in the ambulance, I went in off to rehab. And I didn't even know rehab existed, what it was, anything.
How old are you,
So
Tina, at this
then,
point?
I was 19 years old.
19. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had me because of me slitting my wrist, which we're going on 34 years later, and you know what? You could still see that scar. And that's what it is now. That part is a scar. It's not a wound for me right now. It's a scar, which is wonderful. They put me in a padded room and 24 hours, and I walked out of that room. Thank God it was large. And I was looking around and I'm like, oh, I don't even belong in this place. What is going on? So I started helping the people on the unit, like walking around, see if anyone needed anything, like I worked there or something. It just being the patient wasn't my place, you know? So the helping heart already went out the moment I walk out the door. Then they transferred me to the other floor. Back then it was co-ed and I went through the program. I wasn't thrilled to be there. I was in one of the classes and a lady was writing on the board and I was sitting there in the front and I was just watching. And typically I am not a rude person or slick or anything with people. I'm always kind hearted. But I looked at that girl as she's writing and she's our leader, she's our teacher. And I'm like, you think you know because you read a book? And she just looked at me and she said, Tina, I'm one of you. I was like, really? And I think that moment saved my life. Came home, became a flight attendant because what is the one thing they say? Do not hang around the people you used to be with. Well, how am I going to do that going home? They're all there. So I got really lucky and I became a flight attendant and flew all over the world. So that was my favorite thing. And then I just lived my life. I didn't like go to meetings continuously. And then that's where came in the problems with my daughter getting those drinking tickets. Then the organization opened. It's not like I was in college to do this, right? I just had a heart and wanted to help, and I knew I had a helping heart my whole life. So I could do this. We could do anything we put our mind to, right? So the way I started was kind of how they treated me in rehab. We had meetings, we had art classes, we had sports, they sent us to a gym. So I started it like that. And then I used to go back and forth with the sheriff I knew well and a lot of the people out here because my daughter ended up in jail and eventually in prison and back and forth and talking to the sheriff, how do I help these people? This is what I have going on. If you want to send people this way. We had an amazing kickball season. Like everything was just going well.
Mm-hmm.
So we had art, we had sports, we had meetings. The sheriff would always tell me, Tina, you need letters behind your name. And I'm like, I have life experience. I'm like, come on. He's like, you need those letters. And I'm like, I do have letters. I have FA, I have a PhD, I have a PCA. And he's like, what are those? I'm like, well, I was a flight attendant. My PhD is a public high school diploma. And I was a patient care assistant. I said, who knows what those letters mean and who reads those letters? I have a heart. I have the passion. I was out on the streets. I get this. One day, I was presented with information about a CCAR recovery coach training. I was like, oh. And I took the CCAR recovery coach training, finished with that, and got my certificate right on the phone with the sheriff.
Uh-huh.
I have some letters.
Nice.
It was great.
So
So
where are you? What part of the world are you in?
I am in Mequon, Wisconsin.
You're in Wisconsin, and you were born and raised in Wisconsin?
No, I was born and raised in Illinois,
Okay. And
Chicago suburbs.
what were you like as a small child?
I was a helper. I used to walk to the nursing home and I would listen to the older ladies tell their stories. Older people like to talk about their life. And when somebody will sit there and just listen to them, they're so happy and thankful for it. After I would go to the nursing home, I became a candy striper with my grandma in the hospital. So I was still that helping heart there. One night, my neighbor across the street, she wasn't feeling well. She was quite a few years older than me. So she calls me and says, my girlfriend is coming over and she's driving a really long distance. Can you go out with her? Because I don't feel good. I'm like, I don't even know her. She goes, Tina, you're just a people person. You're nice to everybody. You'll get along fine, please, because she's coming from far away. So now here's this innocent, nice girl that's just going through life. Well, my life changed that night. So the girl picks me up. I was 16. We ended up in a bar, and that was all new to me. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I don't know how we get in a bar at 16 when you're supposed to be 21. And then we ended up talking to two guys that were best friends, and we come in as two girls, and the guy's mom owns the bar. So now what? Closing time, you don't have to go anywhere when you know the owner's kid, right? So then, I don't know, I was introduced to drugs, and you know what? I did it. And wow, I never would have expected that of myself.
What were you introduced to?
Oh, cocaine.
Yeah. Okay.
And alcohol.
Okay.
Actually, both.
Mm-hmm.
The night went on, and guess what? The next weekend, she picked me up too. And then the next weekend, she picked me up too. Now, I'm in high school. What is going on? This is ridiculous now that I think back of it. But, out in Illinois, the bars didn't really close. I think maybe there's a rule now. I don't even know. Maybe they have to close for 1 hour. But what do you do in that hour? You just go out to your car and wait for it to reopen and go back in, right? And it was hush hush. Like nobody, I could never break my mother's heart and let her know of anything, because my dad was an alcoholic and he was just a drinker. And I grew up on a bar stool since very, very young. And then there was a lot of times with my dad's drinking. Like we were on the patio one day and he wanted to put me, my brother and sister in the car. And I was like, Dad, no. I said, because I knew he was drunk and he wants to go places. And I said, just take me. I just only want to be with you. Just let Tony and Janelle stay here and play. Just let's go. And so I, what would be that word? Took my life in a way I knew it could possibly end, getting in a vehicle with him as a child. But I always tried to protect my brother and sister. My dad passed away in 2016.
Oh, it's hard to hear that. He must have been fairly young. So I'm interested in these teenage years that you don't seem to remember too well. So, but you were in the bar weekends, but you still got to the point where life became, at least maybe even a drunken or cocaine-induced haze, that you thought you wanted to end your life. And do you recall anything from how that spiraled or to that point?
Yes, I do. So what happened was we'd get hotel rooms and a lot of people be in the hotel rooms using drugs. They wanted more drugs. Well, never in my life have I went on a drug run, but they asked me to go pick up drugs. And I did by myself. They gave me the direction to the guy's house. I'm under the influence, going to pick up the drugs. The house, it was a white house. You had to drive in the back. When you walk in that house, you walk into the kitchen. He opened the door after I knocked. When you walk in that house, you walk into the kitchen. And then he shut the door behind and said, go over here in that room. So I go to my left. That room was the bedroom. Apparently nobody else was home. The house was very quiet. The room was dark. He shuts the door and he's told me, have a seat on the bed. So I sit down and I said, well, they sent me here to pick up some stuff from you. And bits and pieces of my memory, I can remember what I think most of it. I remember there was the bed, there was a dresser next to the bed full of like 20 bottles of different colognes. And he reached his arm into the little dresser that had the cologne bottles on it, and he pulled out a gun. And on that gun was something connected to it that I personally have never seen before. And it was like something you would yell into to be loud, like a microphone. But later I found out it was a silencer. So he instructed me to do what he wanted me to do, or he will use what he had in his hand, which was the gun. So basically what happened is I went through a nightmare, horrible rape. It was just sickening. I don't even know how people could do that to people. And when that nightmare was over with, he went in, like on the other side of the room, there was another door, and it was a little dark, but there was a doorway. There was no door on this door frame. And he went and got a black bag, and he pulled out the black bag. He gave it to me, and I left. And like that was that. I went back to the hotel, did a whole bunch more drugs at that point, and alcohol was involved as well. And I was just done. I mean, figure this has been days, right? I'm just using these drugs for days. I'm drinking. I'm on the road. I'm talking with lots of people. And then when I got back to the hotel, this one girl was like, "Oh, I love your pants." And I'm like, oh my, now my pants. Like, nobody knows what I just went through, right? Now she's talking about my pants. I'm like, so I just had to get out of there. I went home and I just said, I'm done. And I slit my wrist.
Did you tell any? So did you end up ever telling anybody this about the rape or the story of all that?
No.
Have you shared it before?
I think I shared it within this last year one other time.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a podcast. Do you want to share it on here?
It's fine. It's what happened.
Well, I just want to be, if not a lot of people know about it, it might take them by surprise. That's all.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. In my life now, what I do with helping people, yeah, it's okay. It was part of the terrible things that happened.
Okay.
And this is an education piece. And when young girls think that they just could go buy boys and get drugs and walk away, that might not be the case.
Oh.
And maybe my story would help a different individual.
Got it.
Not go on a drug run, or hey, if they have, if they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, always be safe and have someone with you. And I mean, my story could potentially have a young female not get in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina.
When you first said that I was done, after all that happened, I thought you meant you were like done using and done with that lifestyle. No, you were done with life. You wanted life to be over. And here you go from this young girl who has a heart to help people to being so messed up that you just wanted your life to be over in just a matter of a few years.
Protecting everybody else, but not yourself.
Right.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, after that happened through the years, I think like that suicidal ideation has been there. And I've also came to the conclusion for myself, do I really truly want to die? Absolutely not. I love life. I love people. I love putting smiles on people's faces. I love surprising people. I love to see that change when somebody will come to me for support, and as I work with them over time one-on-one so closely, like the person that they've become by helping themselves, and I love to be part of that process. So I think for me, when those thoughts and those things happen, I don't really want to die. I have come to the conclusion, I just want things to change. I don't like feeling like this. It's hurtful. It's hard. I don't want to be in this moment right now. I don't like these feelings. I don't like what's going on. And coping skills is huge.
Right.
Coping skills is helpful.
So let's go into the next big piece of your life that you have in your bio. Talk about your daughter and how when your daughter was born and more of the journey with that. And I see what happened in 2021, but can you tell us that whole story?
I think so.
We'll try.
Yeah. I might have to be silent for a few seconds with tears. I've been kind of feeling like I'm helping and educating people, so it's helping me get my words out with strength. So where would you like me to begin?
When was your daughter born and what's her name?
Angelina was born April 24th, 1993.
How old were you when you had Angelina?
23.
23. All right. So and we already know that she developed problems of her own. And what was that like being her parent? What did you do? How did you cope? All that kind of stuff.
Angelina was a beautiful little girl. She was helpful too. And she, I remember that girl, she would run up, she would see me, right? For instance, when we first see people for the day or whatever, Angelina would just be like, Mom. And she would run to me with excitement and give me a hug. I love you. Like, this kid was great. Yeah, we did everything together unless she was in jail or prison.
Well, that's quite.
How about
I get you just like take me on these like these little time warp leaps.
around? How old was she when all that started to happen?
Freshman in high school.
And how did you find out?
2011.
How did you find out?
With the police at the door.
Oh. Well,
like, what is going on?
And what did go on that first time?
Oh, she was getting drinking tickets.
So that must be a Wisconsin thing, or
yeah, I've never heard of a drinking
what's
ticket.
a drinking ticket?
Oh, underage. If you're underage and you're drinking alcohol, the police will give you a ticket.
And how much is the ticket usually?
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't seen one of those in like a decade.
I mean, is it like $5 or like $500 or something in the middle?
It's a few. I think it's a few $100s.
Yeah. Okay. So she came home with a drinking ticket. We don't have drinking tickets in Connecticut, do we?
No, we have drunken and disorderly charges.
Well, yeah, we could get in trouble for other things. I don't know what happens to underage drinkers, though. Usually it's whoever sold it or the parents or somebody that gets in trouble a lot if your kids are drinking underage.
Yeah.
All right, so what steps did you take?
Well, it's very hard to deal with your own child for some reason. And it's so easy to help other kids by other parents. So the step that I took was I opened a nonprofit organization to help others because it made perfect sense. I knew that life. I knew what destruction could happen in her life from it.
Right.
And so I was trying to be the helper again. She tried real hard to change her life, and it just didn't always work for her.
And somewhere along the line, she gave you a grandchild?
Yeah. She was pregnant, and at about 1 month pregnant, she ended up finding herself landing in prison, which was really good because her being pregnant and on the streets and using drugs just wasn't going to work. I mean, not saying there's not drugs in prisons,
right,
but it's probably a little bit harder to get than just available in a phone call real quick on the streets here. So, yeah, she had Mason as his name in prison, but they don't have the babies actually in the prison here. They take them to a local hospital. And then after Angelina gave birth, they did let her hold the baby for a second, and they took a picture. And then when she was back in the prison and secure, and they had her number back in there, they called me. And then I went and picked Mason up, and I've had him ever since. And he's 5 years old now.
Wow. Was she in prison because of mostly drug and alcohol related offenses?
Yeah, and basically she went to prison because I don't know what the laws are out there, but when you're on probation and you
test positive
get
or
in
whatever.
trouble,
Yep.
yeah.
I think of the severity and the harshness of it, that a young woman who just gave birth, that you take the child from them because they're in prison for a drug or alcohol related offense. It's incredibly severe. And it's not just severe for the woman, it's for the child. Thank God that you were there to like hold that child and take care of that child.
It's also, just to your point, Phil, substance use disorders are a disease, and what other disease would be punished in this way?
Yeah, and punished that harshly. Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to your family.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in 2021, I'm reading your bio, it didn't end well.
Right, but you know what I want to tell you? Let's
Yep.
back up a little
Sure.
bit to 2017.
Sure.
For 2017, Angelina had Mason, went back in the prison. I picked him up when they called me. Then the newborn baby, I had to get on a visiting list. So I had to wait a few days for that. And I brought Mason to the prison, and I got us both in, and we sat down with her, and I said, honey, you don't look good. And she said, Mom, I don't feel good. I said, here's your son. Do you feel strong enough to hold him? Why don't you sit in the kid area? Just sit down on the floor with him, because, you know your kid.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you just really don't look good. So she held him, and I walked up to the prison guard, and I said, they know me by now, right? You go to prison, it's not for a month. So I said, I just got here. I just came today to introduce her to her son, and I'm leaving. I said, my child is sick. Something is really wrong with her. I said, please, if you could respect my wishes and get her to medical. I worked on heart and lung transplants for some years in cardiac. I can't tell you what's wrong with her. I have experience in the medical field, but she's sick. So I'm going to leave. I'll call you in an hour and see what happened from there. Well, wouldn't you know it? Thank God this prison guard listened to me. And when I called the prison, she wasn't there anymore. They called an ambulance and they took her to the hospital. My daughter ended up spending, I believe, almost 2 months of her prison sentence hooked up to antibiotic IVs with a prison guard in her hospital room and one outside her door room, because Angelina had a blood infection. Angelina got a blood infection because bacteria got in her body when she had a C-section. And I knew she was sick. Like, my gut told me my kid isn't right. So she went, they took care of her. I am so impressed with the prison. I am so thankful for the prison guard and the hospital that took care of her. And she went back to the prison and finished her sentence. So now brings us to 2021.
Well, that little piece is, so the woman is, your daughter's hooked up and they have a prison guard outside her room?
Yeah.
Like what did they think she was going to do?
I think she was even handcuffed to the bed.
Oh, like she's going to take off somewhere. She's that sick, but we're going to have 2 guards and handcuff her to the bed.
Yeah.
A mom who's just given birth, who is no threat, and they spend all these resources and confine her that way. It's shocking in some ways, but also I'm grateful for you to see how thankful you are that part happened. But the way we treat people is appalling sometimes.
Yes. Well, when I worked in the hospital, there was somebody that was in trouble with the law, and there was a police officer as well.
Yep. God.
Yeah. Even when I was a flight attendant, if they were transferring, they used to handcuff them to the seat. I'm like, what?
Where are they going to go? Right. I don't know.
Oh.
Anyway, 2021.
Okay. 2021, May 11th. Angelina has not been feeling good. She was in the middle of a court case as well. And she's just sick. So finally, I took her to the hospital. I dropped her off at the hospital. And I knew they weren't going to let me in. So me and Mason dropped her off at the hospital. And we left. We went to the grocery store. And then we came home. And the policeman followed me in my driveway. And I just got out of my truck and said, what's up? And he's like, where's Angelina? I said, I just dropped her off at the hospital. And he's like, well, she's not there. And I said, well, what do you mean she's not there? He said, the hospital called to do a welfare check. There's She's nowhere to be found. There's blood all over her bed, and they think she took the IV. I said, okay, this story doesn't make sense. I said, listen, Angelina's very sick. If she's not there, somebody pissed her off. There's blood all over her bed. I didn't drop her off because she got cut. I dropped her off because her ankles are swollen. She's very sick. And tell them to check the linen basket because I'm pretty sure they'll find the IV. And they did. So I told them, me and Angelina always end up back together. I'm going to call you when we do. And that's what happened. And I asked her, why are you leaving the hospital? Well, the nurse told my daughter that my daughter was lying to her, and it looked like she was shooting dope up her ankles. And if my daughter didn't tell her the truth, then she couldn't help her. So why don't you really tell me why you're here? Because they thought she was drug seeking. And I told, the next day, the emergency room director called me and said, I am so sorry how my staff treated your daughter. And I said, well, thank you, but I have no interest talking to you. She said, well, I'm not going to charge her for the visit, and I'm not going to test her blood. Well, first of all, getting blood from that kid, no, you need to test it. I didn't say it like that. What I said was, my daughter was a patient at your hospital. Charge her for the visit. You have her blood. My daughter is very sick. You need to test that blood. And I said, and the one thing I do want to say to you is, I believe your staff needs empathy and compassion classes. So if you would like me to come teach them, I will. And you could even put the nurse that was rude to my daughter in that class. And I will be a great teacher to her as well. And I would. Again, she apologized, and, that's that. Within 48 hours, I brought my daughter to another hospital because she was still so sick. And she's like, I'm not going. They're so mean to me. They see my history on the computer. They just think I'm there for drugs. It was just, I'm like, honey, you have to go. So she went to another hospital. I told the ER, I said, okay, please treat my daughter for the reason she is going to tell you why she is here. You are going to find that she has a drug past. Please do not judge her for that. She is sick. She already walked out of a hospital. She needs help. So the ER was wonderful. They admitted her. Then the next day, like hours were going by, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to let her be at the hospital. Her drug life is just horrible, everything. Like, let the kid relax a minute, right? I have the baby. So it's low in the afternoon. What do you think happens? Bam. Angelina walked out of the hospital again. Why? Because the nurse bullied her from her past. She had a backpack in her room. Well, what's the first thing? All these kids carry backpacks right now, I even have a backpack. I don't have drugs in my backpack. But apparently the nurse just started bullying her. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what she said. But I know whatever she said made my daughter angry and walk out of the hospital and not continue getting care. So she made a doctor's appointment. And Angelina's not an early bird. I'm like, honey, we have to go to the doctor. She's like, I am not moving. I don't feel good. She's laying there, looks terrible. Oh my gosh. I'm not going. I don't feel good. I said, this is the perfect time to go. Let them see what's wrong with you. Let's go. Let's go. Well, she's 28 years old. And, I'm not going to pick her up and put her in a car seat, right? So we didn't go. So in the meantime, we have this court date. The judge on this case was phenomenal. He knew Angelina was sick, and we've been going through this in and out the last few months of this. And he was like, how are you doing with your, sickness? And I'll tell you, I've never seen such a heartwarming courtroom judge What a good guy. So finally, we just went through, she's not getting the help she needs. She's still not feeling good, but let's get this sentence over. It was only 20 days. She served her 20 days. She comes home. She's still looking terrible. I went up in her room one day. She was just laying there for days. She was a smoker. She didn't go outside to smoke. She didn't, nothing. She barely got up to go to the bathroom. She wouldn't barely drink, no eating, nothing. I walked in her room one day. It was dark. And I'm like, lift the shade. I can't see you. So I lifted the shade and I looked at her and I said, oh my God, it looks like you're going to die. We have to get to a hospital now. It was like she was losing weight. She was just, she looks so bad. She said, I'm not going anywhere. They're so mean to me. I said, Angelina, you have to. This is beyond our control. You need medical something. And I said, I'm not picking the hospital. You pick the hospital. And she's like, I'm not going. I said, you have to go. So anyways, in the meantime, through all this going on, I was emailing another doctor of another hospital because everybody was treating her so bad because of her drug history. They weren't seeing her as a person. They were seeing addiction. They were seeing substance use disorder. They were seeing mental health. They were seeing everything but what the problem was. It's like, stop it. So we get to the hospital, July 20th, 2021. And this time they admitted her to the ICU. And guess what? Angelina had another blood infection. And then she had sepsis. And then Angelina died on July 28th, 2021. It was the worst day of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing to even top it off more is that I listened to this. Angelina got this blood infection from a tattoo gun that had the bacteria on it. The tattoo she was working on herself, she was doing it right here on her arm, and it was a heart, and in the heart said M with a heart for the O and M. So it was a heart with mom in it, because that girl just loved me so much and I loved her back so much. And the tattoo got infected and it wasn't working out right. And then she waited for it to heal and she did it again over. And we didn't know it was infected to the point where it gave her a blood infection. So that's where Angelina got her blood infection this time. And because the first nurse on May 11th, 2021 was so disrespectful and overlooked what really was the reason my daughter went to the hospital and just seen addiction, substance use disorder. What a shame, because in my mind and heart, my daughter should have walked in that hospital and told them, I'm not feeling well. These are my symptoms. The nurse definitely seen her swollen ankles and her swollen body parts and knew, you could just see, not knowing her, this girl does not feel good. So then what you do is you take blood, you get it tested, you do cultures, you come back and say, your blood results came back. You have a blood infection. We are going to get you admitted into the hospital and put you on antibiotics. That took me less than 15 seconds to say to you. That could have saved my daughter's life. But because that nurse judged her for her past, made her feel horrible from her past, made her feel so horrible that she walked out, did not continue to get her care that she should have gotten, and she has now passed away. And every day I wake up to the same story, and it's horrible. It is horrible. every day, same story, and I can't change it.
No, you can't. And I can't imagine the pain and the frustration and the anger. So we're getting near the end of our time here. Is this the story you're going to tell in upcoming in Florida? Are you going to talk a lot about this?
No.
No. Okay. What are you going to talk about?
Well,
because this is, I mean, you're a survivor, obviously. And let me ask you another question before Florida. How do you take care of your recovery today?
Well, helping other people helps me.
Got it.
I do, my continuing education classes are helpful. Me working with people is helpful. Me taking my own time to figure out what is my next thing to do to help people. Let's my own self go through a process and think about things. And when I work with people, I give them challenges. And you know what? I don't send them off by themselves. We're in this together. I do the challenge myself too.
Mm-hmm.
So I am constantly every day working on myself as well as helping others. And that's how I do mine.
Tina, I want to thank you for everything you've shared, because there is going to be somebody that hears this and connects with your story and sees your positivity and turning your circumstances into gold in other people's lives. And, as a mom, I can't imagine any worse thing happening in my life. But the fact that Mason has you to shepherd him through and to see how you've turned these hard circumstances into something good for other people, I think is going to be really powerful and a legacy of your love for Angelina. If there are people listening that don't have somebody like you to turn to, I hope everybody knows that 988 is a great resource. So if you're struggling, if you're hearing this story and it's bringing something up for you, please turn to 988 and reach out for some help.
Tina, it's so good to hear your story, and I appreciate your vulnerability and your sharing all that with me. I wish you nothing but love, peace, and happiness as you learn to deal with your grief as you walk alongside it. So thank you. I found you inspiring.
Yes, thank you. It makes me happy to know the story's helping others. I've had nurses write into me and tell me that they're treating people like us different.
Nice.
Perfect.
It is. And I'm writing a book and inviting others. If anyone's been affected by the medical field, they could be in my book, because I want to do it for educational reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also want them to tell me the positive of what could the staff have done in order to make it a positive experience for you. I just don't want to put out negative.
Thank you, Tina.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.